Hello, everyone. Welcome to ELI, the place where you get your daily dose of inspiration for entrepreneurship. And today we have with us Ajay Shetty, who is the founder of Salud Beverages, which is a multi-brand wine company. Hi, Ajay. Welcome to ELI.
Hi, Priya. Good to be here. Um, Good to be back on a new show that can discuss our roadmaps, our plans, and I hope it's a great place for future entrepreneurs to learn a lot of things that we've gone through.
Yep. So, Ajay, tell us a bit about the different ventures you have been running. So, Salud Beverages is one that you have founded, but I saw on your LinkedIn profile that you are part of other ventures as well, all into beverages and wine and etc. So, tell us about the different ventures you run.
So, just to get everyone's understanding, I come from a banking background. Was a banker, went to school in the US,
Mhm.
quintessential investment banker who founded or always had a passion for food and drink. I think that was my biggest passion. And I moved back to India to start my first, probably one of the earliest startups in the liquor space. For someone who's never worked here, if you talk about it in the quintessential terms, had no land banks, had nothing to try to create a wine company, and
Mhm.
that's what we tried to do way back in 2011. Uh, and we then founded I say me and the family because it was completely bootstrap as a business. We founded this company called Myra Vineyards under the holding company called ABS Vintners. And we got out our first vintage in 2013, 2014. And in 2018, we exited the business with a sale to a French Singaporean fund called Visceris Capital.
Mhm.
That was my first venture, and that's pretty much what got my beaks or my feet wet in the whole. Firstly, in the liquor space, had never worked in the liquor space earlier. In the whole idea of creating a brand, selling a brand, and probably increased, doubled, quadrupled my love for F&B.
Mhm.
Post the sale is when I continued to work with one of the main brands under them called Grover Zampa for about 18 months as part of the deal, and then moved out to start Salud. Salud is a multi-brand, and I noticed you said Salud Beverages and wine, and that is true because we've now introduced one of our meats also into the market. So
Mhm.
officially, we have a wine brand also. But the idea of Salud is a multi-brand, multi-spirit company with the focus being the first-time drinkers to early 30 drinkers. So the goal is to make beverages both of low alcohol or regular to be accessible, aspirational, still clean, classy, and a lot of fun, and for people to be able to move around and try because that is the goal.
Mhm.
And along came my current VCs who were with me on my new journey from day one, from the time of seed or pre-seed or concept stage until ventures. And with them, we kind of learned we not only learned how to go about doing and working in COVID,
Mhm.
building a whole new venture in COVID, raising capital during COVID, doing trials and tests in peak COVID time in across 3, 4 different regions. And I think I was able to not only do that well, but also ignite the passion in them to want to get into the spirit space. And I think the last venture of ours has been a venture with Antil Spirits and us creating this whole thing called Antil Spirits to thereby use the knowledge that I've got um, and how what they've learned as VCs to combine together to start finding, scouting, and looking at newer uh, entrepreneurs who will want to enter the F&B space and see how we could mentor them, scale them, invest in them, build new brands, which could eventually be part of the larger parent company or separate individual entities by themselves. So I think that's what it is. So if you look at it, that's what we've been able to create. Um, And the last 2 3 years, it's been super exciting, specifically with Salud, because it's what is getting us all the traction and interest in the market. So yeah.
Got it. Got it. So, couple of questions. So, one thing very curious to know is you were into banking industry, that too in US. Can you tell us what triggered that switch from banking to something very new? Did you have prior experience into alcohol, and why did you come back to India? You could have done it in US.
Everyone's used this story. I think I'll use it too. You should blame the movie Swadesh. I think every Indian who's gone outside the country, who's seen Swadesh, has felt a need to, and a twang in his heart every time he's heard the song, to want to come back and to do something. That's, I guess, we were a lot more emotional at that period. As growing up, and you know what I mean, like living abroad, whether it was in the US or then later on in Hong Kong. I think the goal was, I think, one of the things that banking got me was exposure to a lot of uh, travel, eating, drinking, ideas, and concepts. And I felt India then was at the cusp of gastronomy. Like, let's use the story and an analogy very well. Look how well we've adapted to UPI, digital marketing, or even usage of apps for food and delivery, and cloud kitchens and F&B and bar exposure. It's all because we are a young population that's traveling the world now. Our exposure, what was invested in 1990s and early 2000s, has created this whole bunch of new younger population that has been educated in great schools, are traveling across the world, working in IT companies otherwise, greater exposure. So you've gone from, if you had thought about it, like if you grew up in 90s and 2000, your earlier food orders were either Indian or Chinese,
Mm,
and maybe some Italian if there was a hotel that was a five-star hotel close by. Now you talk about food, gastronomy has started to blow through. You have global cuisine in India,
good.
and that was what we were noticing from outside, or I was noticing from outside. And I felt that would mean that someone coming in with interesting things like wine, and alcobev in that space would have a huge inflow. Obviously in India, it's still a state perspective. It's different rules. It's not under GST. You have a lot of other restrictions, but in spite of the restrictions, I felt the market was there. It was interesting. And I had never worked in Alcobev. Neither is anybody in my family. My dad's a banker. My brother's a businessman, but it's in the ITES space. My mom is a homemaker. So there was nothing anywhere in the realm of the world being alcohol, other than the fact that I drank it a lot and I enjoyed it.
Mhm.
I think that was pretty much what it was. But it was the passion for food and drink that I had ignited. And I thought, why not, right? And we didn't know what it entailed. We didn't know anything. It was just jumping into the deep side and trying to figure it out. So that's why I kind of understand a lot of times when people do businesses. So I didn't, in the first venture especially, I didn't go through the quintessential route of diligence in lots of ways. And that is the biggest learnings I had when I came into Salud, or the second venture in the liquor space. I think we were just, there was a lot of gut feel, there's a lot of belief, there's a lot of understanding, some great people who helped me through those times, and that I must not never forget. But it was a lot of gut in that decision making. Also a lot of guts on our part, because we had to literally leave everything and come to India to try to do something random. I'd never worked in India before. I'd not
Mhm.
even done a single job here. So I'd studied and I'd gone to continue my studies. So, I've never worked in India. So it was a lot of learnings, and a lot of new rules, and suddenly trying to figure it out. So it took us a good 18 months to figure things out.
Mhm.
And our first venture was under the brand name called Myra Vineyards, and we launched a few wines in Karnataka, in Goa, and in Maharashtra. And then that's what took off, and then started your whole learning to understand the arithmetics of both the financial side of it and the sales and marketing sides of things, because it was a startup where it was literally me doing every area of the business in the beginning. And slowly people did come, but it was a lot more, because it was bootstrapped. It was a lot more tighter in shape and in space. And some of the things that I learned over that was how you extend it to do a larger business. How do you scale up? How do you need the right people? How important is finance? In any business, how if that is your literally like your spinal cord to run the business. How important are people? How important is it to be people forward before anything else? How do you be emotionally unattached to certain things? How do you build scale? A lot of things were learned. In fact, understanding of rules, understanding excise rules that are state specific, finance rules, how IT use, because see, liquor was always either closeted with lobbies and with certain sets. So I was the first one trying it. After me, I think literally 3, 4 years after me is when Bira came, and other brands that are known in India have come much later before we exited and came out and did that cycle. So we've done things a lot earlier to people, and those understandings are um, hugely important in the way I approach not only what I do, but also what we do for our, what we do for our current mentees that we have. I think
Mhm.
that's the big difference.
You spoke about diligence, and so just want to understand how is the regulations in the space? How does a new entrant, understand what are the regulations, and what are the different hurdles that one would expect to face? I think it's a lot more simpler now compared to 2011 when you
It's
started. But tell us about that experience. How did you navigate through the Indian
it's the
liquor?
same. It is to be honest. I don't think it's a lot more simpler now. It's still the same. The thing is, it's state specific.
Mhm.
The rules haven't changed, right? Just to tell you a larger sense of it, there have been enhancements to the rule, but the basic structure is still the same. We are still defined by the Excise Act, which means that it's state specific. Each state defines it individually. So a brand, unlike, say, for example, you want to sell any food consumable that is a non-alcoholic content. You can do a national GST registration, you can sell it anywhere, you can go onto Amazon, wherever it can go. Whereas in case of alcohol, it has to be registered in each state, it has to be sold, it has to be registered in the home state it's manufactured, it can't be sold online. There are different processes, the labels have to be continuously monitored, everything has to be approved, it has to be renewed annually. There's a whole bunch of structure. So what do I say? So what I tell most people is one of the most important things what people have to do when they want to get into the space, unlike other businesses, is have a clear understanding of where they want to enter, what do they want to do in that area, have a realistic understanding of the market, because there are not too many entrepreneurs and not too many places where they can go work on lease or work on rent and all the other things. I think a lot of those things are defined by by actual research, and that's why diligence comes in, where you can't just jump in and do what I did, because it does take time, understanding and bootstrapping, which now if you have that diligence done, you can do it a lot better and faster. So you still have like a lot of haven spaces that help you do it faster, like a lot of people, and you would have heard of how Goa has been very
Mm.
very active in that space. That's why a lot of brands come out of Goa, because Goa, the rules, the regulations are a lot more easy and adaptable. They have actually made it their thing to help startups come there. There's a lot of facilities there, facilities that are doing lease, or bottling contracts, lease contracts, sale contracts for people. So it's a lot more easier. But the rules, the taxes are a lot more complicated. So people need to understand those areas. So finance, understanding of supply chain is key. Understanding which markets you want to cater is key, which are government markets, which are distributor markets. So each rule is different, collections are different. So it's key to understand it, because like some people find comfort in selling in the northern markets, but it's if you're not from there and you're from the south, there's a lot of supply chain issues that will happen, right? So it's key to centralize, find your local markets, find the proof of concept working for you, and then to scale up rather than anything else. And obviously have enough to think of a long-term plan, because in India, liquor um, funding is still very nascent. Only few brands have been able to scale because of either international VC funds or international private equity funds helping. Otherwise, the next big stories are few compared to the numbers that I've launched. So it's still finding its ground. I think people like Prasad and Sailesh are from Antil are making a big difference in it. But there are going to be, it's going to take time. It's now I see suddenly a lot more interest in wine bars, which was not there till now. And a lot of guys tried it and didn't succeed. But 13 years since I've started, we started Myra and then came out, now I see that the traction has finally come. So it does take time. But once it does take time, once it does, then the scale up is unbelievable. So you need to be ready for that also.
Got it. Speaking of scale, uh, can you tell us what all challenges did you face? I understand you launched at Goa, Karnataka, Maharashtra, and then probably found adoption in pockets of the consumer base. What did happen then when people found that your product is good and they wanted more and refer to their friends? What challenges came?
This is we're now talking about the first venture. So in the first venture, I think there's a lot more challenges when it's bootstrapped, right? Volume becomes an issue. How do you scale up? Where do you organize money? The structure, as I said, it was a lot more unorganized. Trying to find money for liquor businesses was difficult, so you had to dip in. So then it became a question of a classic chicken and egg case where you didn't have enough to create so much of a supply because the rotation was longer, times took longer, cities and states. So the goal was to continuously supply, manage, and understand. And I think that's what we were trying to do. One of the big reasons why we chose to sell was that because we felt that if we had to grow exponentially, we needed exponential money. But the wine business, as an understanding, I realized then was that it needed deep pockets and long times to wait to get to do that. And the number of guys in India to be able to do that at that time were less. So the logical decision was to get a gainful exit and then move on to doing other things and follow other areas of passion. That is what how we ended up with creating this crazy beautiful brand called Salud. Because I think one of the biggest learnings we learned was having the right team to back you, the right team to help you scale, have more people who you can trust various areas of business, how you could continue with the clarity of vision, long term, short term, have complete clarity on it, have your benchmarks into play, timelines into play, be able to create a complete digital physical avatar of the brand, have the right finances, the right registrations, be aggressive with the move, at the same time be able to create a fun brand and a fun atmosphere for people to want to look, live, and follow. Like, look, we've got to understand today Red Bull and Kingfisher are clear brands that created a lifestyle over the actual brand. None of them talk about the brand, they talk about a lifestyle. And that is something that we also believe is key in order to create an impact, because we are so new, we don't have the money power like them, neither do we have the star power like them. What we have are great brands, great products, and our ability to understand and pivot quickly and make it fun. And that's what we were trying to do and we're trying to build. So in the current scenario, I think the biggest thing that we're trying to do is understand brands which are globally awarded. Like Salute, for example, has won global awards for its RTDs, which has never been happened before. But we realize that India is still a market that requires, while it looks at game-changing alcohol, it also requires certain things that work in the market, which means India is still a color-oriented market. They do need natural colors or colors in their drink for people to feel there is something there. So we've used those learnings after some time, while we continue to adapt to the clean, clear alcohol thing. We also realize that some markets don't recognize RTDs as a type of alcohol or a drink. So we had to pivot to make wine-based RTDs. So the question was then, how do you keep pivoting? And then we realized people wanted stories of where is your spirit coming from. So then we built a luxury brand. So we were always learning. So one of the biggest cues that I learned is, yes, finance, and the other thing is listening to your customer and being available to be pivot at that moment when you hear feedback and not get defensive about feedback. It's key to be, learn it, because that's the only time you actually achieve something. You don't have to learn everything and over listen, but you need to have an understanding of it. I'm not going to say be random about it, but at the same time, if it is something that you're hearing and it's consistent across markets, then it could be something that you need to apply, change, and be able to accept that change. Because the intent is to grow the brand, the intent is to make it accessible, the intent is to arm your sales with a better product to continuously sell and grow. I think that was the big thing. And the constant learning that I tell people is, I don't look at excise rules and government as difficulties, but I'll treat them as a very simple nomenclature that all kids our age will understand, which is poker, which is
Mm-hmm.
these are the cards you're dealt. You need to understand what cards you're dealt, and you need to know how to work with it.
Right.
Correct? You can't complain about what is this and that is that. And yes, you can try to enact change, but this is what you are. This is what the business environment is. Either you become an activist and go to change the entire environment and then come in, which is going to take your time, or learn how to work with the system and the rules and build it around that.
Right.
And then from the system get the changes to happen. I think that is the most possible plausible route you need to take, and I think that's what we were trying to achieve, and that's what we're trying to do. So we don't look at those as, I think the biggest thing is continuous supply of money, because this is not a cheap business. It
Mm.
needs ideas. For you to assume that you can sell the product and make it can happen, but it's at few pockets. As you grow to multiple markets, the payout times are different when it's a distributor market. The cash holdings are longer. So you need to understand your finances well. You need to understand your market very well, so that you are not overcompensating and over ordering and overdoing. You need to price, you need to understand cost cards very well. COGS and all that is usual, right? Most kids now understand how to use their DCF models, and there are NAVs, because I feel like everyone's now an entrepreneur in some way or the other, and everyone knows how to elevate his sales package. I think that is good, but what is key is to understand really what is the market share going to be. Are you going to be just another a couple of $1 million or $100 million business or $1 billion entity? And then you go into that attack mode for that and have a clear vision for that. I think that is what it is.
Last few questions. Tell us, what is the meaning of entrepreneurship for you? How would you define the term entrepreneur based on the learnings and experience that you have got as an entrepreneur?
I think for me, entrepreneurship is a way of life. I think I've looked at it at, I've never, to be honest, I've never had someone ask me this question to evaluate the word, but I've looked at it as a way of life. It's something that you need to be at it. It's something that you need to feel in your fiber, to take leadership into your idea, to your concept. But one of the biggest things is to be unemotional, because a lot of people who are entrepreneurs who get emotionally married to their product or otherwise are the biggest reasons why the product doesn't take off.
Mm.
And the last part of entrepreneurship is execution. There is no point of being an entrepreneur if you can't execute or understand that there are better people to execute. That is where the key is, right? That's where entrepreneurship is. Entrepreneurship is a fully rounded person who can understand that he might have a great idea, he might be able to create it, build it also. But if it has to reach a level or its natural course, and if he then becomes impediment to the natural course, if he can learn how to move out and let people to take it there, then that is what true entrepreneurship is. I think entrepreneurship is a feeling that what you're creating is bigger than who you are.
Mm.
And to be able to acknowledge that.
Speaking of learnings, can you tell us what is the top learning that you have got as an entrepreneur that can be applied to not just beverage industry, but everywhere in the entrepreneurship space? This is my last question, final question. Tell us about what are the learnings. What is the top learning that you
I
have?
think I think as I said, right, everyone talks about many learnings in this world, because I think if you're not learning, you're not evolving, right? But I think for me, it is humility. I think it's to be, frankly, over this weekend, someone said discerning, understanding, a whole bunch of things like that. But I think the largest thing is humility to understand, um, as I said, to understand your brand, understand what it does, understand who you're, it's much above you, that it's bigger than everything else, that the number of families you're taking care of is bigger. The worry is not just about yourself anymore. The worry is about building this to be there for perpetuity. And that is your goal. And if that is your goal, then I think you need to be humble about where you are. You need to be able to do whatever it takes to get it to that area, and you need to be able to take any decision that is required for that to happen, rather than about yourself. And if you can think about your brand in that way, I think you're in a good space. I think that is what it is. There are different other learnings people might have about go at it, don't give up, persevere. All that is true, but it is also important to understand the entire situation and not emotionally understand the situation. Understand it on a whole, respect the situation, and then take the decisions. And then also understand how important is finance to it. This is something that people have a lot of times. It gets clouded. While you grow, while you understand. I think it's very key, because the more transparent your systems are, the faster people come on board to take you forward, because it is required. Some businesses, the burns are higher, some business burns are lower, but it's real, because entrepreneurship, the number of successful entrepreneurship is a dime compared to the number of people getting into entrepreneurship, as we all know. So it's key to understand that. And it's key to understand that you require, while it talks about it, the people that you build require that money to sustain. So people can't work with empty stomachs. People can't, you have to understand those are true realities of life. Marking them with saying we've built a team, they'll work for 6 months without food, it's not going to work. Because people will find other ways to live. So you've got to be clear about certain things. And that's why I say, I think the coolest aspect is understanding yourself will make it a lot more. So having clarity on that will be there. And being humble to understand that this is where the blocks are and I have to take those decisions is key. That is the key aspect, I feel.
Yeah, I think that's true, very true. You have to understand yourself whether you are made for entrepreneurship or not before you jump into entrepreneurship. Thanks for joining us, Ajay. It was a pleasure to have you on our platform, and many good learnings came from you. Thanks for joining us, and our best wishes for Salud Beverages.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye.